Welcome to the first part of our web series where we show you how to install NMS Prime version 4. Back in the older versions of NMS Prime, we were using Red Hat Enterprise Linux 7 or CentOS 7, but since this is end of life by now, we migrated our whole infrastructure to Red Hat Enterprise Linux 9, or for that matter, what I'm going to show you today, Rocky 9. You see, I already started a VM, in this case using KVM and QEMU, but of course you can use whatever hypervisor you would like. I already created some storage, I think around about 60 gigabytes of data, 4 CPUs and 4 gigabytes of RAM. And I just booted up, as you can see, the Rocky minimal ISO file, and from here on we can now start the installation. So we do have, and I can show you this on our webpage, we do provide automatic installation scripts. So if you go to the free trial, and then of course you have to type in your work mail, your first, last name, company name, and you have to choose which deployment you want. For example, I want to install this on my own machine on-prem, so I'm not going to use the cloud, which would be using AWS, but today we're going to use the server. So I'm choosing this, and then I have to also type in my domain. And based on this, you can see down below here we have a lot of different modules to choose from. So for example, I want monitoring enabled. So you always see the OS ones are the ones which are open source, and the Prime ones are the ones where you need to have a license. In this case, we do provide license for 30 days. So you can, with the installation script, we will see just in a bit, you will be able to test our system for 30 days. And later on, of course, you can get back to us and we can talk about licensing modules for longer time. But if you were to stay with the open source modules only, you do not need any licenses as such. So, but I want to have monitoring, so I'm going to enable this. I also want the VoIP provisioning. I'm going to choose detect, which is basically telling me if there are some outages, and it will notify me, for example, via email or via SMS, if something goes down. I also would like to have the control, SNMP controlling. I also would like to see dashboards, and maybe also a ticket system. So you can see here, you can click and choose whatever modules you are interested in. And then later on, we're going to type in our user data here, click on agree, and then you will get a simple bash script, which you will have to input into your VM. And from there on, you can basically install NMS Prime. But let's go back to Rocky Linux installation. So we're going to choose to install it now. And now we just have to wait a little bit for the ISO to boot up and to detect our system and the storage. So this is going to take a second. And then we will guide you through all the necessary configuration steps to set up the minimal base system. Because one of the issues with the default, at least, of Rocky 9 is that it's in the default partition scheme, it does provide or does suggest a very big home partition. And this is not something we need at all. In fact, we don't need the home partition at all. So that's why I will show you how to modify this a little bit, the partitioning, such that this will be ideal for our use case. We will soon see a screen, a graphical user interface, where you can type in the IP addresses if you want to have DHCP or whatnot. And then we can also look at the partitioning scheme, as I said. So let's wait a little bit for the system to come up. So the system has booted. We can see our graphical user interface, and I'm going to switch to English now for the English audience, obviously. Let's go with United States. I might have to change my keyboard layout, but maybe it's fine. Let's see. So I'm going to continue, and now you will see all the options I have. So first off, I'm going to set a different keyboard because I'm not using the English one. So but of course you can keep this if you would like. Next up, the language support English is fine for us. Time and date, in this case we are based in Berlin or near Berlin, so this is fine as well. We're going to use a local media as installation source. It should be a minimal installation because we do not need so many dependencies like the normal system would need, because for foremost, we have a headless system, so we don't need graphical user interface at all. And we will, during installation, we will install all the required dependencies automatically. So, and this, of course, depends on what modules you've chosen. Depending on this, the correct dependencies will be pulled in. Besides this, of course, as I said, we don't like the partition scheme. Rocky provides as default. So I'm saying I want a custom storage configuration, and I click on, and of course I'm using my 60 gigabyte storage here. So I'm going to done. And first off, in this case, I don't want to use LVM because it's a layer of abstraction I don't need in this case. So I'm just gonna go ahead with the normal standard partition and say I want them to be created automatically. What you can see now is basically that it created a big home partition, which I don't need. And well, in this case, it's not that big, but if you were to use like 500 gigabyte storage, then the home would be very big. So what we're going to do is I'm going to delete the home partition, and I'm also just going to delete the root partition, and I will recreate it such that it will use the complete space, available space for root. So let's click on plus. I want the mount point slash, and I just want all the rest of the capacity to be assigned to my root mount point. So let's enable it, and you will see we are using XFS for our slash. We're going to use XFS for the boot, and of course swap has its own just swap file system, which is fine. And of course the size of the swap is depending on how many or how much RAM you have built into your machine. So let's go to done, and this is basically what we want. So it will ask us now if this is fine, what we chose, and yes, I will accept. So now it's going to format my hard drive. And let's look at the network. I should have received an IP address. Yes, this is via DHCP, so this works well. I can, at the same time, maybe I set my host name here. Let's call it test.nmsprime.com, for example. Can apply it. So now I have set my host name. And I can also check using time and date if I'm properly connected via internet, because I'm saying, okay, the network time has been accepted. And I can also see that it's working, the rockypool.ntp.org. So this is also nice. So I have an indication that my internet connection works. The last thing I need to do is setting up the root account. I'm using a very poor now, which is called Tor, T-O-O-R. But anyway, this is just for demonstration purposes. And I want to allow, in this case, via SSH and the root password. Of course, you can change this later on if you want. For the demonstration purposes, I would allow this. Later on, if you really probably want to lock down your system, you should only allow SSH access via public key crypto infrastructure. So let's go to done. And now we can already start installing. So I'm not creating a user. Of course, you can if you wish, but it is not needed for our demonstration. So I'll leave this. And now I'm going to begin the installation. And now the base system will be installed. You see the partitions are being created and also the file systems. Based on this, the packages will be installed, the bootloader will be set up. And once all of this is done, I'll get back to you. As you can see, the installation has been completed. So now we just need to reboot the system, log in, and from there on we will start sending or executing our script. And this will install all the modules we talked about before. And this will allow us to install NMS Prime completely. So it still has my ISO booted, so I'll need to force it down, and now I'm going to start, and now it should start from my hard drive disk, and it will boot up the Linux system. So let's have a look here. Now I'm going to use my very secure password, and I'm in. Should be able to ping now. Let's see. Yes, this works. So now I can switch back to our homepage, and I'm just going to use my normal email and my first last name, and it's prime. Let's call it test.nmsprime.com, the domain. So I will agree on the terms and the privacy. And now, as you can see, I directly get a script to call. Of course, you can open it up if you wish and check what it's going to do. I think I'm not able to copy paste, so let's have a look if I can do that. I think I cannot. Nope, so I have to do this myself. Okay, so give me a second, I'll paste it in. Okay, as you can see, I typed in our URL, and you can see it's repo9.nmsprime.com. So we do provide an RPM repository, and this is actually where we host all our RPM packages, which themselves have all the dependencies included, and some of the dependencies we ship as well. So you basically have everything you need for first installation, and also later on for updates. We will provide all of this via repo9.nmsprime.com. In this case here, you can see I'm using curl. I'm downloading this, and then I'm piping it into less just to see what the script is doing. So you can see here that we are installing some dependencies, and then we are enabling or disabling certain modules based on what you chose. And we also get the license from a certain server. So now we can just, instead of piping it into less, we can now pipe it into bash. And this will basically install the complete system. So you will see we are updating our repo cache. We install EPEL, which we need as well. So this is extra packages for Enterprise Linux. And then you will soon see that we are also adding the NMS Prime repos. There is both an OS repo for the open source stuff, and we also have a Prime repo, which are our Prime packages, basically the ones for which you need the licenses. And you can already see we downloaded NMS Prime repos latest file, so there's basically all the repo definitions in there. We're adding some more dependencies, for example, Grafana, as you can see, which we use to visualize the metrics we are pulling from the modems or from the various net elements. And soon you will see that all the modules will be installed and all their dependencies. So now you can see we are somewhat finished, or now we are doing the PHP. So because we need a certain PHP version or a newer one compared to the one which is enabled. Now you can see all the licenses being extracted from our server, and soon you should see all the dependencies which we need to install NMS Prime. So we're updating again the cache, RPM cache, and in just a bit you will see all the modules being installed and the dependencies pulled in. So now you can see all the dependencies which are being installed. So actually first what we're going to do is updating the system. So I was installing Rocky 9.4, but since the ISO was released, there were some new updates on the general Rocky base system. So this is first updated, and only afterwards we are going to install the NMS Prime packages. So now you can see we are complete with the first update, and now the actual installation will begin. So you can see all the dependencies up there being installed or actually pulled from the various repositories. This will be mainly the Rocky repositories. Of course, there will be some EPEL stuff as well. Now you can see the NMS Prime packages just now, the documentation, document management, and provisioning, and ticket system, and whatnot, and all the dependencies, as I said. So just to recap, we basically just ran this one command, and now everything is taken care of for you. So you really don't have to do anything, just really typing in this very one line. So we're still pulling the packets. You see, it shouldn't take long. We already have around about 900 packets of 974 packets downloaded. So let's wait some seconds to finish. And here we are. Now we simply import some signing keys, in this case from the extra packages for Enterprise Linux and for Grafana and MongoDB and Postgres. So these are all the dependencies we do need. Postgres is our main database, also for storing the time series database, for which we're using TimescaleDB, which is an add-on for Postgres. And MongoDB we require for Genie ACS, which is our ACS server for provisioning devices in the non-DOCSIS world. And we just have to keep waiting now. This might take 10 minutes, potentially, depending, of course, on how capable your machine is. And once this is done, I'll get back to you, and then we will have a properly set up system and everything should already work. The installation is complete now. As you can see, the last step is enabling or disabling the modules we don't need, or the ones you didn't choose, via the web page. And now you can see everything is set up. You should type reboot now to restart your machine, because we updated the kernel, or at least the update before we installed NMS Prime updated the kernel, so it always makes sense to reboot afterwards. But we can see that anyway the HTTP daemon is already running. So let's have a look. HTTPD, you see, is running. So we can actually already have a look if we can see a graphical user interface via a browser. So I already typed in the IP address 136 here. You can see, of course, we are using self-signed certificates directly after the installation. So you get a warning that the the certificates are not secure, but we'll go ahead and do it anyway. Now you will see the first light basically of NMS Prime. And this is the end of the installation process. And from now on, we will have some more videos covering the installation or the configuration for that matter, adding some modems, adding contracts, configuring the monitoring and stuff like this. So stay tuned for the next videos in this series.